Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Well, 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 g'day curd nerds and welcome back to Ask the Cheeseman. Long time in between shows. This is episode 186. And let me just check something I didn't check before. Yep, that's okay. All good. Welcome back. Thanks for everybody being here today. Really appreciate everybody turning up. And we've got a few people on the chat. Well, about 25, which is fantastic. We will say some hellos in a minute. But before we start, big shout out to new YouTube members, Henry Dickerson. Thank you, Henry. Cuisined. Thank you, Cuisined. I think you're in the chat as well. Judy Mack. Thank you, Judy. And Judy's in the chat as well on YouTube. And new patrons. We've got Adam Schindler. Thank you, Adam. And Cuisined on Patreon as well. Very keen. Thank you so much. Now, videos this week. We will have a white Stilton taste test. You would have seen the white Stilton video, white Stilton with apricots that I made. Well, I made it about 3 weeks ago, and the video went up last weekend. And I'm going to try it at the 4-week mark because I've done a little bit more research, and the AOC version of the cheese, or the designation of protected white, there's a white Stilton that's protected. It's normally sold at about 4 weeks of age. So I'm going to try it at 4 weeks, and then I'm going to age it for maybe a month more. Maybe 3 is max, so I found out, which I put into the video description. So I'll be doing that today. I'll be tasting that today. And the other video that's in production is São Jorge, which is a cheese from the Azores, Portuguese style cheese, bit like cheddar. Had a few issues with it, but hopefully it'll all be fixed. Okay. Now, I do have some bad news, or sad news. Probably not so bad, it's sad. Our little dog, Holly, who I'll just show a picture of in a second. Where is she? So our dog, Holly, passed away on Tuesday. It's with a heavy, heavy heart that that I have to announce this. She, normally sat on my chair at the back of the stream, and anyway, it's a bit early, I suppose. Anyway, these things happen, and it's all about moving on, I suppose. But for those who want to know, Hamish is fit and healthy and all well. Holly just got old, and she had kidney failure, liver failure, and it all seemed to happen within a couple of days. On Sunday, she was fine, running around chasing Hamish. On Monday, she went downhill rapidly and spent all day in bed, wasn't well, all that sort of stuff that happens with older dogs. And then on Tuesday, we had to put her down. So not a decision we took lightly, of course, but, we wanted the best for Holly and we didn't want any suffering. So that's what happened. Anyway, let's get on with the cheese, shall we? Hang on a minute. I promised this wasn't going to be a drama channel. Anyway. Just a sec, folks. Okay. Right. Anyway, to the chat. All righty. First, cab off the rank, and thank you. G'day, Patricia. How are you? The lovely Kim, of course, is moderating today. So any naughty people on YouTube will get banned pretty quick. G'day, Robert. Lovely to see you, mate. And I think I got some photos in the gallery at 8:30 from you, which is great. G'day, Manel. How are you, mate? Ryan, I think that's how you say it. Ryan, yeah, sounds about right. G'day, Charlie. How are you? Dominique, good to see you, mate. Simp Samurai, g'day. How are you? We'll get to your questions soon. Lindsay, g'day, Lindsay. Lovely to see you. Loki, I think that's how you say it. G'day, mate. Samuel, g'day. How are you? Judy Mack, me, a new member. I think you're renewed. That's what YouTube said anyway, Judy. Mr. Spiner, Ms. Spinner, Miss Spinner. I'll get it right. G'day, lovely to see you. Monique, having trouble up there in Sydney, I see. Hope all is well, and hopefully you can get a vaccine soon. Cheese Therapy, g'day, mate. How are you? How are you? Sam and Helen, lovely to see you, of course. And lots of people saying that they love their doggos and sorry for my loss. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't mean to burst into tears during the stream, but you know these things happen. Hello, Fred. How are you, mate? Finca, g'day. Liana, lovely to see you. Townsteading, g'day to see you, and Annette, and that will do, I think. If I've missed anybody, hello, thank you for joining the stream. We've got 50 people on the stream at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, just one for Cuisined. You can post your questions now, mate. So I haven't seen them as yet, so I can show them on the screen. Rightio. Next, first question. Let's get to it. Where is it? This is from Simp Samurai. It says, when did you get into cheese making? When 2009 was when I made my first cheese. It was a Feta. If you want to know how all that went, you can pick up my first book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, which, if you're on YouTube, should be in the merch shelf down below. There's a whole backstory behind it, so you can go and read that. Okay, this one's from Samuel, and Samuel says, hi, Gavin, weird question. Would the addition of a small amount of alcohol tincture to the milk after adding the culture be enough to stunt or prevent curdling? Any requirements for infusing cheese? I wouldn't add alcohol to the milk at all. It will curdle it straight away. It won't prevent it. It'll actually do it. It's because alcohol's fairly high in acid as well. Depends on what type of alcohol, but yeah. So you only add alcohol to the curds after they're cut and just before pressing. So if you're going to add something like stout, which I've done before, I've made a stout cheddar. You just soak the curds in stout, let the flavors infuse, which they do quite well, and then press them. I've done the same thing with wine. You can do that with red wine as well. You get a nice color to it. And what else have I done? I've used a liqueur as well on the Christmas cheese. It was a sweet liqueur, sticky, and that was really nice as well. So that worked out. Okay, but thanks for your question. Where are we? Rightio. So the next question is from Liana. And Liana says, can you take care of your favorite cheese? Oh, sorry. Can you take care of your favorite cheese, your least favorite cheese, newbie cheeses, and the maggot cheese? Maybe get those out the way so we can get on to the good stuff. Yeah, so they're the questions. And quite rightly, Liana says they're the questions that everybody asks. So we can get to the good questions. But yeah, all right. So favourite cheese, all the cheeses. Least favourite cheese is processed cheese, newbie cheeses. Kim will put up a link to the beginner's cheeses in a second, and maggot cheese are never going to make it. It's illegal and it'll probably kill you. There we go. So yeah, we got all those out the way. Thank you, Liana. That's a great little prompt there. Kim's just noted on Holly, and I promise I won't cry again. Says she was diagnosed with liver cancer in December, so they said she would only have 3 months to live. But little Hamish made her strong, and we had an extra 8 months of her being well. Indeed, we did. We were blessed. Cool. So, next question is from Wilma Charlie 83. And said, can I add a little lipase to your Fontina recipe for a slightly stronger flavour? How much for a 10-litre batch? Typically for a 10-litre batch, you would add 1/8 of a teaspoon of calf lipase. So if you want just a little bit of lipolysis, which is the breakdown of the fats, and it makes that piquant flavor in hard Italian cheeses, then I would half that and go down to 1/16 of a teaspoon. So hopefully that helps. Okay, Robert says, yes, you have some photos. Since taking those photos, both cheeses developed an overpowering ammonia smell that wouldn't dissipate. Did the white molds make my cheeses overripe and go off? The ammonia smell, yeah, usually is associated with white mold and a lack of circulation. You'll find that when you're using ripening boxes, if you have white mold cheese, you really do have to expose them to oxygen at least once a week to get rid of that ammonia smell, unfortunately. But yeah, it does dissipate. The ammonia smell does dissipate if you leave the cheese at room temperature for at least 30 minutes before you can consume it. Okay, question from Cuisine says, can I vacuum seal an opened Penicillium candidum, Geotrichum candidum, Fluoridanica, etc. to a 10 by 7 centimeter sachet? Would the airtight vacuum destroy the bacteria? No, it probably wouldn't. But there is a better way to store, and I think you got a second question here, is I've seen that all Danisco sachets come loosely airtight packed in the sachet. Do I have to use Mylar bags for this, as they do, instead of plastic seal bags? Okay, there's a simpler solution. It's this, the specimen jar. So sterile specimen jar, pour your opened cultures, starter cultures, the powdered ones, into a specimen jar. They seal so well that no moisture from the freezer will get into them. All of my starter cultures that I use, the ready-use ones, not the ones that we sell, they're all packaged. But when I go and open up a packet, I pour it straight into a specimen jar. And we send these out with all of those Mylar packets when we sell the cultures when we sell the cultures to customers, of course. So yeah, so that's where I do. That's what I do with them. Try press them with water. Okay, there's some other questions you've got. I have this solution, but it's not air sealed. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, so use these little jars. Pour your stuff in there. They stay fluid and powdery for, I've had some in there for a couple of years past the best before date, and they still work like a treat. Anyway, next question is from Townsteading. Says, we took your advice and tried our hand at bel paese. It seemed like the curds didn't knit together very well. It looks like Feta. Do you think it's a curd temp issue? Yeah, could be. I think it's more of an acidity issue. If the acidity is too low, so below about 4 I think it's 4.6, if off the top of my head. I'd have to go and look at my book. That's when the curds start to go crumbly and like Feta. So obviously the acidity level is a little bit too low. So stir less, or use a little bit less culture, because that's what acidifies the milk. So there's some suggestions for you. The paste should be very, it should knit together very well. The curd should be very moist. If they're too dry, they won't knit together when it's pressed under its own weight. Jim, g'day, mate. How are you? Lovely to see you. And to Kim, thank you, mate. Liana says, how do you compensate for cheeses needed to be ripened at different temperatures in your cheese fridge? Well, that is a good question. So, Liana, what I do is the white mold ripen. So my cheese fridge is one of those bar fridges, you know, like a dorm fridge, sits under a counter. And it has a cooler box, which you can freeze stuff in when it's in normal mode. But because I've got an external thermostat, that's just the refrigeration part, and that keeps the fridge cool. So that's cooler than anything else. That's the top of the fridge, which is weird. So the bottom of the fridge is actually warmer than the rest of the fridge. So I've used a thermometer to determine in my cheese fridge that the chiller box area, which I can fit a ripening box in perfectly, stays at about 7 degrees Celsius the whole time, even when the rest of the fridge is at about 13. So when I do mold ripened cheeses, and I want, so like white mold cheeses and blue mold cheeses that I want to grow the mold slowly, then I'll put the ripening box into that area, which is the old freezer part. It's not really a freezer anymore. And that's, like I said, about 7 degrees. All the rest of the temperatures, I know that the higher shelves are cooler and then the lower shelves are a bit warmer. It's a bit weird seeing hot air rises, but that seems to be the way my fridge works. So check your fridge. You'll find that different parts of it will be warmer and different parts will be cooler. So that's how I get around that issue. Okay, Robert says that I have a Cotswold, Edam, Shropshire, Caerphilly and Appenzeller going right now. We are very excited for the taste tests. Oh, they'll be amazing cheeses, mate, if your photos are anything to go by. Hi-Fi says, do you have a recommendation for a type of wine cooler for aging your cheese for those of us that don't have a good aging spaces in our homes? Some of the more modern wine coolers. So when you get a wine cooler, make sure it's refrigerated. I'm not sure. I think pretty sure they do those now. And some of them even have separate, so they'll have 2 doors or maybe split in half, and they'll have separate zones, one for chilling whites down to 4 degrees Celsius, and the other zone for red wines for at about 13 degrees Celsius. So you can get those. I don't have a model or a recommendation per se. You're going to have to do that research yourself. But like I said, I've got a converted, it's called, here in Australia, it's called a bar fridge. I think in the US, it's called a dorm fridge, just a small fridge, and have an external thermostat on that. And that turns the power on and off and controls the temperature. It's got a probe in there that I've just put through the door seal, and that works fine. Okay. Liana says, will tasting the curds after adding salt or liquid smoke, but before pressing, give you an idea on the final product? As far as do I need to add more salt or flavoring, or would this not be an accurate representation? No, it won't be an accurate representation at all, because remember, the acid development hasn't really finished until at least into air drying the cheese before you seal it up. And then remember that the chemistry, it's a living entity cheese, which sounds a bit funny, but the bacterias and stuff, the bacterias really do keep working, and the enzymes keep breaking down the fats and the proteins in the cheese to develop flavor. So tasting the curds in their raw native form at salting will not give you an indication of flavor or anything like that. It'll just taste a little bit salty. So not much you can do about that. But so just make sure that when you're making semi-hard and hard cheeses, the rule of thumb is 2% of salt per weight of curds before you press them. And that usually, for a 10-litre batch or one kilos of curds, is about 2 tablespoons of salt. So, but if you're using different salt than what I do, I kind of swap between fine and coarse. The coarse is a little bit heavier than the fine, but yeah, so it's 2% by weight, sometimes up to 2.7, depending on the cheese. Okay. Ian says, how does Bulgarian Feta differ from Greek Feta? It's the starter cultures they use. So in Bulgarian Feta, they use a strain of Lactococcus lactis subspecies Bulgaris, which hence the name Bulgarian Feta. They use a stronger strain of that than they do in Greek Feta, and it acidifies rapidly, and it really does taste very, very strong, Bulgarian Feta, compared to Greek Feta. So that's the difference. Samuel says, wow, that's so helpful. Thank you, Gavin. So cool to hear about alcohol-infused cheeses. Interested in infusing cheeses with THC, which I believe is the main chemical in cannabis, and was wondering if tincture, adding flour to the milk whilst heating, and there's a follow-up part of that, or powdering the flour will be easier to infuse. Look, mate, I think that if you're going to add THC and make a wacky cheese, then the best place to add it would be into the add to the curds just before the you press it, and probably as a powder. So very similar to, go and have a look at Sage Derby. All right, if you're going to use green herbs, then that's probably the best way to do it. Go and have a look at the Sage Derby recipe, and Kim, if you can pop up the Sage Derby recipe for Samuel, then I think all his problems will be solved, and it will come out an amazing cheese. Okay, so I aim to help everybody here. Paul says, hi, Gavin. My Gruyere is about a month after vacuum packing, and I noticed it seems a bit soft. All of my cheeses are hard, so it might be just me. If not, no harm in checking in 5 months. Should I try to dry it? Yeah, so Gruyere, as you've seen in the video, it that I produced, I'll start again. It formed the natural rind, and it goes brown as you continue to wipe it with salt, and it's that wiping with salt as it develops, and then when the rind dries out, then you just simply brush it. That's how the rind develops, and it brushes, and the salt helps moisture escape the cheese, if that makes sense. So that's why it dries out and goes hard. By vacuum packing it after a month, then it will be fairly soft. Maybe about a month before it's ready to be matured, take it out of the vacuum packing and put it in a ripening box, and make sure you flip it so it dries out a little bit. So that would be good. That should help. Okay. Borg, I think that's how you say it, says, hey, Gavin, we followed your Camembert recipe for our first batch. We followed it in detail, but arrived with overly salty cheese. We did the 18% brine. Any idea what went wrong? With that actually being there, I think that you probably brined it too long. For Camemberts, depending on how small they are, if they are about that thick-ish, no more than 2 to 3 hours. in the brine. So the longer you leave them in the brine, the more salt they absorb. That's the chemistry behind it. Yeah, so less brining time, and your cheese will not be overly salty, and you'll get good mold growth as well. Penicillium candidum doesn't particularly like a lot of salt. What you could do is dry salt it instead of brining, and that works equally as well. So a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, top and bottom, on your Camembert. Just rub it all over, and that's it. Camembert salted, and then go and let it grow its mold. Alrighty. Next question's from Rayanne. Says, I live in a country where cheese-making supplies, lipase, calcium chloride cultures are hard, if not possible, to come by. Can I make them at home, or maybe replace them? Thanks in advance. No. Well, it depends. It depends. If you've got access to raw milk, then you don't need the starter cultures per se. You can make a perfectly good farmhouse cheese if you just use the raw milk. However, age it for at least 5 months before you consume it, just to make sure there's no nasty bacteria. Make sure that the milk is of a good high quality standard. So as far as rennet goes, rennet is difficult to come by unless you've got the fourth stomach of a ruminant, and then you can dry salt the what's known as the rennet bag, the fourth stomach, and then cut off a little piece of it and put it into the milk, and it will coagulate your milk. You can also use alternatives like fig sap, cardoon thistle sap. That works as well. There are other alternatives to rennet. Calcium chloride, if you're using raw milk, you won't need it. Lipase, if you're using raw milk, you don't need it as well. You can also check out a book by David Asher called The Natural Way of Making Cheese, or something like that. And he describes how to make cheese like the ancients did. I think he uses a combination of animal rennet and raw milk, definitely. And I think he uses kefir grains as well. It's another thing that he tends to use a lot of. Anyway, I hope that helps. Manel says, how can I collect the flocculation factors for cheese? Kim, if you can put up the link to the flocculation video for Manel, there's a table embedded in the video, and Manel can just take a screenshot of that, and you've got all your flocculation factors. There you go. Steve says, what's the maximum amount of time for aging a Camembert? So normally at about 10 days, when it's got a full mold cover, between 10 and 14 days, I wrap the cheese and then put them in the normal kitchen fridge. And then you normally consume them about 2 weeks later. So a total aging time of about 4 weeks. Smaller the cheese, the quicker it ages with Penicillium candidum and Geotrichum candidum. If the cheese is a little bit larger, I will test it at 4 weeks to see if it's oozy. If it's not oozy, then maybe go out to 5 or 6 weeks. If I'm making, there's the alarm for the gallery. I'll just finish this question. If you're making the, if you're making fake Camembert, then it can be up to 6 to 8 weeks for it to mature, which is the stabilized paste version. So I hope that helps. Alrighty, so the next question after the gallery will be from Gonzalo in Argentina. So we'll get to him in a second. I'll just bring up the gallery. Let me just get rid of that photo. Okay, so here we go. Bit of screen sharing going on here. All right, so welcome to the gallery. This is a segment. Oh, that's not looking good. That's better. This is a segment where we show off our Curd Nerds, the Curd Nerd community's cheeses. This first one is from Hafiz, and Hafiz sent in a Valence that he's made. And doesn't that look amazing? Let me just see. Can I zoom in? Yes, I can a bit. There it is. Good looking cheese. Nice ash line in the middle. That looks pretty cool as well. Nice white mold coating and ash on the outside. And from all reports, it turned out very well. Let's have a look and see if there's, I think there's another photo. There it is. Very oozy when it came up to room temperature. Perfect, just what I like. And it had the perfect amount of goatiness. So great little cheese there. All right, is there any notes on this one? Let's have a look. Yeah, there is a note around this. Says, "G'day, Gavin. So I just cut open my cheese. It is your Bloomy Goat Blue." Oh, okay. But I did use a pyramid mold and vegetable ash. I cut one piece in the third week and it tastes lovely. However, the skin is too strong for my liking, so I scraped it off and only ate the inside. I should have aged it inside the kitchen fridge after 2 weeks. The remaining 2 pieces, I continue to age inside the kitchen fridge probably for another 2 weeks just to see if there's any change of flavor. Thank you for your recipe. See, it's great, always great to experiment with cheese. And certainly I do that. But yeah, great effort there, Hafiz. So let's have a look at the next one. So this is from Joshua. I'll just make this one a bit bigger. So does Joshua have a little notes? No, he doesn't. All right, so we have here a Camembert that is ripening. Looks very nice. Great mold coverage by the looks of it there. I don't know if we've got a photo of them cut into. Let's have a look. No, we don't. So the next photo he's got is some Cherv, which is a goat's milk cream cheese, on some sourdough bread. I don't know if Joshua baked that, but it looks lovely. And a bit of dill. Oh, so nice. That's fancy pants stuff there. So that's very good. Well done, mate. The next one from Joshua is a Red Leicester. Let's get in close there. Oh, very nice. Red Leicester. That looks lovely as well. I see you using artificial cheesecloth, which does actually help with high temperature cheeses. I don't stock it or sell it because I find that the normal cheesecloth has seemed to work all right for me. But yeah, you can use, this is a disposable cheesecloth. It's made from a, it's like a knitted plastic fabric, and it works fairly well and doesn't stick to high temperature cheeses like Romano and Parmesan and stuff like that. And I think this might be the last one from Joshua, and it's a St. Marcelin, and that's a lovely little bowl you got that in, and it looks perfect. And by all reports, it tasted good too. So well done, Joshua. Fantastic looking cheeses, mate. All right, let's one more. Can I move along? Here we go. This one's from Patricia, who I think is in the chat as well. And Patricia, this is a Fontina. Now, she said that the first Fontina that she ever made was a little bit bitter. So with this one, she made sure she turned it weekly. She wiped it with brine and let it dry out properly. And it turned out absolutely perfect. So best Fontina ever, apparently. So well done, Patricia. Thank you for sharing that photo with us. The next photo is from Robert. I think Robert's got some, and Robert's in the chat. He's got some stuff here. So this is a Bel Paese. It says the first is a Bel Paese that caught a cold. The white mold started growing on it, and I thought, what the heck? I like Camembert. We'll see what happens. It's delicious and very runny. This picture is at fridge temperature. So I can imagine what the Bel Paese kind of looked like when it got up to room temperature. That oozy bit here would have been quite runny. So, but absolutely looks fantastic. Never have a failure with cheese. Just eat it and call it a different cheese. Anyway, so this next cheese that he's got here is Castle Blue. He's very excited for this to finish in a few weeks. I can see that that's going to be fairly soft underneath. I reckon it'll have some great blue vein development, but yeah, perfect. Looks like it's on point there. The next cheese is, this one is a Cotswold, and it says, I just made this Cotswold last week. My wife is due at the end of September. Congratulations, mate. And I think we'll celebrate our new son by eating cheese. Lots of exciting stuff going on right now. Love your live streams. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Robert. And that Cotswold looks amazing. So good looking cheese. All right. Thanks for sharing those with us, Robert. The next one is from, let's have a look. It's from Sarah. And let me just get in close. This is a 3 little burratas that she made, and she's made them more successful than I have, that's for sure. It says burrata, she's got some notes here. Burrata, fiddly but yummy on the cheese board. So they look perfect. And that little platter looks lovely. Very, very vegetarian. I love it. Lots of fresh fruit. Asparagus. Oh, I love asparagus. It's so nice. Some artichokes there. Some capsicum or red peppers. Grapes and all sorts of tomatoes, actually. That's very nice. That's lovely. Well done, Sarah. Okay, moving along to the next photo. This one is Kafili. So she's got 2 Kafilis here. So it says, Kafili photos. Divine recipe of yours. Seriously recommend this cheese. I compared it to a bought one from a Devon cheese shop this week, and all that have tasted them declared mine the best. Oh, fantastic. I don't think they were just being nice. I use Fluoridanica and MA 4001. So looks very crumbly and looks fantastic. Is there another picture of the Kafili? Right, so that one's yours. So it was the one on the left. So this one is Sarah's. That one's a store-bought one with a thicker rind. Very good. So, yeah, I love a good taste test comparison. So, well done. Okay, next question. This is Cam Blue, and you've got lots of questions. Here we go. Right, so Cam Blue, that looks nice. It should be white. But mine, I had trouble as well. Lots of trouble with the Cam Blue. It says, I've seen to have problems getting a good white PC GC covering. The photo shows it better than it was. I have made these 2 ways. The first way, putting the PC GC onto the milk in the milk at the beginning. And second way is spraying it with a weak solution. So this is the first way. So this is putting it in the milk. The first way resulted in no blue mold showing inside or outside, but all with a fabulous white covering. All right, maybe that's not the first one. Okay, hang on. That's the second one. So the second one said, so I reverted to the second method to get the blue, but it never seems to have a good coating of white. I sprayed lightly 2 to 4 times a day in between each sprays. What is the ideal temperature of the cheese that it should be at while whitening up? I keep them covered at 14 degrees before placing the fridge at 7. The inside is divine after 3 to 4 weeks from the start. I just want perfection. So any hot tips accepted. Okay, so ripening temperature is too high to start with. So I usually try to keep it under 10 degrees during the first 2 weeks of mold formation. Those white molds seem to like a lower temperature than what blue mold does. And yeah, it doesn't like a lot of salt, the white mold. So make sure there's no infections. It's very hard. With this cheese is quite hard to perfect, unfortunately. So maybe just stick with either Camembert or blue. But it seems that the blue version you've got there on the screen looks absolutely fantastic. So yeah, so like I said, the first 2 weeks that are below 10 degrees, so around 10 degrees. And then the second 2 weeks is usually at about 4 degrees in the normal fridge. So that seems to help mine when I do whites and blues. All right, so next one is a cheddar. This is a cloth cheddar. She's bound. Yes, it looks fantastic. says it'll be ready in 6 months. Fingers crossed. Hopefully the molds won't go too rampant on it, Sarah. So this is the cheddar before it was cloth bound. This is a Stilton. Got some comments here. Where is it? Stilton photos. Again, your recipe. I can't recommend it highly enough. Love this creamy blue cheese photos. Just out of your brilliant 165 mold and 2 months into aging for 3 months. So that's that looks amazing. That blue mold coverage there in the cracks is just perfect. Just what you want. And there it is into aging. You can see on the outside, she's brushed that down to keep some of the blue at bay. So that's absolutely fantastic. And that, ladies and gentlemen, curd nerds and curd nerdettes, is the end of the gallery. So let me just close that down. My head should be back. There we are. There it is. Good looking head it is too. All righty. So thank you, everybody, one and all, for showing your photos. Let me just show you how to do the photos, how to send me photos. Let me just bring up my channel and we will go from there. So let me just share this again. So what you do, you go to the, goodness me, why is it defaulting to that? Right, there we go. So there's my YouTube channel. Yep, got it, thanks. So you go to the YouTube channel and you go along to About, just here, the About tab on the channel. And down here in Details, it says, for business inquiries, sign in to see your email address. Now, I'm not signed in because I'm in incognito mode on this browser. So I would have to sign in. And when you do, you get to see my email address and you can send me an email with all of your photos. So, yeah, absolutely perfect. That's the way you do it and how to send them. All righty, back to the questions. We've got 15 minutes to go. So, first question is from Gonzalo. Says, in Argentina, we make a similar cheese to Sardo Pecorino, but with cow's milk. What cooking parameters do you recommend? Let me think. So, very simple. All right, so I've got a recipe on my channel for Romano, a Vacino Romano, which is cow's milk Romano. Sardo Pecorino is similar recipe with sheep's milk, of course, Pecorino being sheep. So try the Vaccio Romano. And Kim, if you can put the link up, that would be most excellent. And that would help out Gonzalo a lot. Okay. All righty. This one's from Townsteading. Says, thank you for the suggestion. We'll try it again tomorrow. And then we will try and make bland with the whey after. Yeah, most excellent. Actually, today I'm going to be bottling the rest of the bland. I actually waited a long, long time for it to clear, and it's now finally clear. Because and I think you would have seen in the video, the update that I did, I decanted it into a second demijohn to clear up. Now it's had the bung in, the airlock in for the whole time, so I don't expect it to be any more acidic or vinegary or anything like that, because it could turn to vinegar if you get too much oxygen in it. But I think it should be good, and I'm going to bottle that today and have a little sneaky taste test of that. But yeah, bland, definitely way to go. And a guy called Herb Brooks, who's I don't know if he's in the chat today. I haven't seen him. He says he's made about 3 batches of bland, and he can't get enough of it. It's fantastic. All righty. Romain says hello from France. Also hello to Fred. Who's watching? Yes, I did see Fred there. Thanks, mate. It's great to see you. Ashley says, hello, Gavin. Greetings from Salt Lake City. We found you on YouTube and was making cheddar a week later. Just finished Cotswold. We enjoyed your videos so much. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ashley. Good on you, mate. All righty. Liana says, I have before had port wine cheddar. It was a marbled cheese with white and pink. Would I mix the port into the milk or soak the curds in port in order to make this cheese? I think it's called Windsor Red is the official name of that cheese. Well, that's what they sell it as in the UK. And yeah, you soak the port in the curds just before pressing. That's how you get that marbling effect. What's a good? What have I got? A marbling one. Probably stout cheddar, but use that recipe. That'll work fine, and put port in it instead of stout. Manon says, or Mano, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. My French is shocking. I always refer to Fred for a good pronunciation. Hey, Gavin, French fan here. Love your work. My raw milk camemberts have been in the fridge for 5 weeks and are still very dry inside. Did I do something wrong? Ooh, when you don't get that development in the camembert, raw milk camembert, did you add any starter culture? Would be the first question. You need to add a little bit because sometimes raw milk just doesn't have enough native flora. So if that's happened and it's not runny enough on the inside, then if you've got a good white mold coating on the outside, which is a precursor, obviously, to a good camembert, then it might not be enough starter culture in the milk that's natively there. You may need to add some in. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Robert says, have I smoked that jalapeno cheddar yet? No, I haven't. Things kind of got away from me over the last few weeks, mate, as you can understand. And you'll go on to say, how would I go about making a Huntsman cheese? Can you explain how to mill and repress a cheddar after it's been aged? Ooh, so they actually do it with machines when they mill it. So they mill it into fine particles, the cheese, when it's ripe, and then press it under very high pressure to get it to form into the cheese again. So I'm talking like 200 pounds of pressure. What's that, about 100 kilos? It's just crazy the amount of pressure they have to use to get the cheddar to reform again. So, all right. Liana says, can I do a video on reusing wax? The wax video that I've got a couple there on the channel. That's reused wax. All I do is place it into, I place the wax that I've taken off other cheeses. I give it a brush with a soft brush on the inside with some warm soapy water to get any cheese excess off, if there's any. And then I just pop it back into the wax pot and then melt it the next session. Make sure I take the temperature over 75 degrees Celsius to kill off any bacteria, and then Bob's your uncle, and away it goes. All right. James says, just before the show finishes, but he said it ages ago, hit that like button, Curd Nerds. Yes, if you could, that would be fantastic, and that would help out a lot. There's a lot of people that have hit the like button, which is great. I can see that. Omar says, I have access to raw cow's milk. Should I take cream out and leave it to make a cheddar and mozzarella cheese? No, those two cheeses need a high fat content. So don't skim the cream off at all. Leave it all as whole milk, and you'll have better success. The more fat in the cheese, the richer the cheese becomes. Okay. All righty. Samuel, this is a follow-up on his THC question. Said Samuel was nervous to ask, but there's a huge fine dining with THC scene in my city, and I was thinking of trying my hand at making a gourmet infused cheese. Love everything you do. Thank you, Samuel. No, you can ask most questions here as long as they're cheese related. I'll try my best. And we have the first super chat of the day. I'm not sure who that's from. Let's just knock that off. That is from There we go. It's from Paul, and Paul says, "Hi, Gavin. $25 US, mate. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's like $1,000 here in Australia." Hi, Gavin. I thought you shouldn't have a super chat shout out today. I couldn't. Thanks, mate. Anyway, I love it. Thank you. All righty. Where are we? We do have a few more questions. We've got 10 minutes to go. Let me get back. Oh, here's the question I was up to. It's from Angela, who's watching on Facebook. Hello, Angela. Hello, all the Facebook fans. I'm having a hard time keeping my Parmesan from getting green mold. The best way to do that is to make sure that you wipe the outside with a weak brine solution to start with, probably for the first month, and then the rind will dry out, and you'll get molds, but they won't be moist. They'll just be on the surface. They'll be very powdery, and what they do in commercial Parmesan situations is they will add a coat of olive oil, usually, to the outside of the cheese, very light coating, and then from there on in, they have machines, robots actually, that brush every single cheese and flip them once a week, and it brushes it with a soft brush. And that way the rind stays intact. All of the powdery molds on the outside go away into the atmosphere, and away you go. Anyway, hopefully that helps, Angela. All righty. This one is from Liana, says, "I finally took the lead to made my first cheese." Pardon me. I made cottage cheese and it was so amazing, so I beg you to try again, please. I will give it a shot again. All righty. Moving right along. Ramesh says, hello, I'm new to cheese making. To get a bar fridge set up for aging cheese, you recommend a bar fridge external thermostat. Where would I get a thermostat from? Thank you. Okay. Obviously, it depends on what country you live in. Amazon have a brand called Inkbird, and there are some thermostats. Inkbird, 308 rings a bell, and that's a very good external thermostat. There are some cheap ones that I used to sell from China called Locks 15. And they work. I've got one of those that actually at the back of my cheese fridge, still working after about 5 or 6 years. Yeah, they work fine. But the Inkbird seem to be more reliable, and depending on the country you're in, they kind of adapt the plugs to that, and you won't have too many problems. So that works. Okay. Herb is on there. Herb says, tried the artificial cheesecloth. It tore very easily. Butter muslin works better, in my opinion. Thanks, Herb, for that. Yeah, I've never used it, so I can't really have an opinion on it, but that looks really good. Okay. Townsteading says, I'm glad I'm not the only one struggling with Belpaese, which I think is a reference to the photo in the gallery. Next question is from this is all the comments from the gallery. This one's from Townsteading, says, you should make another video with your next bland taste test. Yeah, I intend on tasting that again today. So I'm going to try it today. I'll film a little bit of that, the result. Probably film the thing. And as Herb said, as I mentioned, bland is great. It is a nice drink. It's very simple to make. And Herb had a question from Townsteading saying, do you make it with honey or sugar? And the reply was, I've done both. Not much difference, except the honey tastes more like honey. Funny about that. It says, use a yeast for mead. If you can't find it, regular brewer's yeast works fine as well. But yeah, it's a great little product, and you can use your excess whey to make an alcoholic beverage if you want. Okay. So Patricia's actually got a statement. Well, we got Hamish here at the end of the show, and I'll show him in a second. Hello, Bubba Louie. How are you, mate? Robert, Patricia said back to Robert, I made a Huntsman cheese. It's a layer-aged Stilton with a freshly pressed double Gloucester, and rubbing the sides of the double Gloucester up over the Stilton. It was hard work, but showy and tasty indeed. I think I saw a video that Patricia sent to me that showed how they made it. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Kim's put the support links in. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Oh, here's Hamish. There he is. Can you look at the screen, Hamish? I know. That there. See there? Show us your eyes. Stop wriggling. There he is. Oh, right. There we go. He's a happy boy. He's been a bit sad this week too, but he's a happy boy. Love him to bits. Anyway, we can go now, Hamish. There you go. That's your photo opportunity. Thank you, son. All righty. If you want to get any supplies, we ship to more countries now. You can get them over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Pick up your cheese making kits and supplies, and we express ship to countries outside Australia only. If you want to do a very good course, I have one. It's online only. You go to courses.littlegreenworkshops.com.au. There's 9 recipes there for you to try, and lots of information on how to perfect your cheese. And don't forget, my second book was released about a month ago. It's called Keep Calm and Make More Cheese, and you can pick that up at the merch shelf down below at Teespring, or go to cheesemantv.creator-spring.com. I wish there was a better URL, but that's what I got. Anyway, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I will see you all next time.